That is the hardest part of that ring.
For the hardest part of the ring.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the hardest part of the ring.
Hello and welcome to episode 162 of Hardest Part of the Ring, the podcast where some friends get together to celebrate the wonder of professional wrestling. There is no Bret this week, but have no fear, because I am here, Adam. Hooray for me! Sam is here.
Yeah, Adam's here.
And John is here.
Hey.
And we have got quite a lot to get through, we reckon, so we're going to get straight into The Undertaking, Volume 10. What is The Undertaking? If you've listened to the previous 9 installments, you've probably got a pretty good idea. If you haven't listened to any of them yet, then go back and listen to number 1, and you can hear Sam tell you every single time what The Undertaking is, just like this.
What is The Undertaking? It is the question that we all have on our minds from when we first wake up to when we last go to sleep.
What is the point of The Undertaking? Oh no, it's a different question.
The Undertaking.
What have we let ourselves in for?
Yeah.
What
Why?
did we commit to?
What are we
Indeed.
doing?
The Undertaking is a retrospective review of the pay-per-view events The Undertaker's participated in. It follows his career from 1990 to 2020 and provides a snapshot of the wrestling landscape at the time. Previously on The Undertaking, we would see the Dead Man take on Mabel in the King of the Ring tournament and lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, just loses. But more importantly, we'd finally see the back of the $1 Million stable, which feels like it had been going on forever. With The Undertaker defeating Karma, the supreme fighting machine, and avenging his melted down urn and the creatures of the night. Are you wondering what the creatures of the night are? Do you want to hear us talk about rickety woodwork and coffin cameras? Well, if you do, look no further than episode 160, which was the previous volume.
Oh, great plug that, Sam.
Thank you. But now we move on. And with the $1 Million stable in the rearview mirror, Taker would take a month off working a handful of dark matches until he would return on Raw to take on the British Bulldog. But in traditional Raw fashion, the match would end in a DQ. And Mabel, not quite done with the Dead Man, would come out and attack. Then a couple of weeks later, in a 6-man tag match, once again, Undertaker would be in a match. And then Mabel, British Bulldog, Owen Hart, Yokozuna and Dean Douglas would come out to the ring and all attack. And
Dean Douglas stands out in that list of names.
Yeah, I don't
Who is that?
recognise that name either.
so Dean Douglas was kind of like another one of the early WWF character wrestlers. He was kind of like a dean of a high school or something, but it was essentially Shane Douglas from ECW.
Just checked, still alive, 56 years old.
He is.
Oh, wow. The only person in that list that is still alive.
Oh, true.
Wow,
Who would have
that's
thought
absolutely chilling. However, Yoko and King Mabel would basically... I say Yoko and King Mabel. King Mabel would fracture Undertaker's orbital bone in this assault. Essentially, Mabel didn't really know how to do a leg drop, and so did it multiple times to Undertaker's face.
Oh, so not like kayfabe, like legit broke his face.
Legit broke his face. Leads to, spoilers, King Mabel getting fired. But
This
Yeah.
this is a problem for my theory in the last Undertaking, that all the fat spreads and doesn't actually hurt. Obviously,
Well-
if you can break an orbital bone with your massive thigh, then maybe there is something to that.
Apparently, he really injured Mabel, really injured Kevin Nash as
He
well by
did.
doing the sort of sit down thing on him, like compressed his back and stuff.
see, you two
Wow.
have been on his Wikipedia page, John.
Yes, I was trying to figure out what happened to him when his King of the Ring run. I was like, what happened to
It's
Mabel's King of the Ring?
A
Just petered out.
strange run, isn't it? Because obviously he was getting quite a heavy push, and then all of a sudden, gone.
It's so bonkers that he got such a big push.
Yes, so King Mabel and Yokozuna, everyone's favourite big guy, would basically assault the Undertaker, and this, you would believe, would lead into a feud with King Mabel and Yokozuna, right?
Yeah.
But Yoko is kind of... He's just written out of the story, to be honest. They just kind of think, okay, cool. crack on with the Mabel side of things. And so we go to Survivor Series 1995.
Milton Bradley, Karate Fighters, presents the 1995 WWF Survivor Series.
It is announced that King Mabel and his thematically appropriate team of the Royals, Jerry the King Lawler, Hunter Hearst Helmsley,
Makes sense, right?
the royal dentist, Dr. Isaac Yankem.
That was a curveball for me.
Definitely a bit of an outsider there. And Jerry the King Lawler. So that's a more or less thematically royal-themed team. Would be taking on the Darkside, as they were called. Now, the Darkside is the Undertaker, as team captain, of course. Joined by Fatu, Henry Godwin, and Savio Vega.
Yes. Do you have any information on why these wrestlers were put together?
Yes, I do. So it turns out they were employed by WWF and Undertaker needed a team.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what was happening with the Godwin, like whether the other Godwin was injured this time, because I think Henry Godwin goes on a little bit of a singles run.
He does, and spoilers, I was a little bit impressed with him in this match.
Me too. Me too. It's one of my few notes.
But yes, so essentially, Team Darkside is so poor. They don't get an entrance, or they all come out to Savio Vega's kind of Latin-inspired music, which, if you're a wrestler and your gimmick is essentially Latino dancing, you're circling the drain.
Yeah,
is what I would say. Which is a shame, because I actually really like Savio Vega, and he's still wrestling.
Is he?
At 57 years old, yeah.
Is that good? Well, I don't know if that's a good thing.
Yeah. But yes, so Undertaker and Mabel are really the only people who get their own entrance. And this is beautiful because behind the curtain, John has written the notes, the timeline for this week's, these matches. And the next note here is just beautiful. Henry Godwin comes out dressed as Luigi.
He does. He's wearing like little dungarees and a green hat. He looks like Luigi. But Luigi if he did meth and worked on a chicken farm.
It's not good.
Can we go back to Mabel's entrance? Obviously, King Mabel carried out by four men. He was being carried out on one of those, I don't know, do they have a name? Like a
palanquin.
Chair? Wow.
It's called a palanquin. Sam does research.
Well done, Sam. I saw that and I thought, that's got to be, 6, 8 men carrying him? Just the 4.
That's a rough job, isn't it?
Yeah. Quite insane. So fun fact is that kind of just before this, at In Your House 4, Rhino was one of the guys who was carrying him in. And I
think I recognise someone in the second match.
We'll get to that. But
yeah,
so Mabel is carried out on a palanquin. Also accompanying him is Sir Mo, his tag team partner slash manager. Yeah. Kind of dressed in referee gear.
Like a ref. Yeah.
I was really confused by that.
It's a bit more silky, satiny, but wider stripes, more like a Newcastle United shirt.
I don't know. It's exactly the same stripe pattern as a ref, I think.
It was definitely not okay to wear that to the ring if you're not going to be officiating in some capacity.
No, it didn't even come into play at any point either. It was strange.
Yeah, it just seemed like a weird fashion choice. Speaking of fashion choices, The Undertaker comes out in his now famous Phantom of the Opera mask, moulded to his face, and I really like it.
It's scary as, I think. It's really freaky looking.
I think you can totally imagine how that would feel. It's like foamy, isn't it? It's soft, squidgy foam, and I really like that. I bought, it was my wife's birthday last week, and part of her present, we're going away somewhere. Wait. I bought,
we're waiting.
Well, basically, we're going to New York at the end of the month because it was it's her 40th.
What?
It's a big deal. Bought these tickets, been planning this for ages, and I bought a Statue of Liberty like headdress thing for her to open, and it's exactly the same material as the Undertaker's mask. That wasn't just an opportunity for me to brag about going to New York, by the way, but I will buy you guys some wrestling stuff. So
Okay, cool.
You can buy Ring of Honor away out there, I reckon.
That story definitely ended more disappointing than it started. I was very excited to hear about how you bought your wife an Undertaker mask.
Oh, no, maybe. I mean, I'll see what I can get out there, guys.
So, The Undertaker rocking his new Phantom of the Opera mask. And, yeah, with that, the match kicks off. And we have Rikishi Fatu. Actually, not Rikishi Fatu, just Fatu at this point. Versus Triple H. Again, not Triple H. Hunter Hearst.
Holy shit, was it Rikishi?
Yeah, that's Fatu.
Yeah, didn't you notice that when he came in? It just looks exactly like him because it is him.
Yeah, exactly like Jay, Jimmy.
I thought Fatu and Rikishi were different people.
I better just check that now, just to make sure.
Oh, it 100% was.
Yeah. Fatu is Rikishi, thank God.
But he's like a healthier, in his total prime before he put on all the pounds. I mean, I still think he looks great even now, but he looked great. A young Rikishi / Fatu was, enjoyable to see.
I think now he looks like it'd be good to go out for a night out with Rikishi.
I've always thought that about Rikishi, though. He seems like an absolute party dude. He's the Michelangelo of wrestling.
Yeah. Little stink face before bed.
There are stories of wrestlers who ended up with a little bit of poop on their nose from that move. There are. One for another day, but the match kicks off and Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Is it Hunter Hearst or Hearst? Like he's hunting Hearst's. Hearst.
Hunting Hearst's would be good. Yeah,
chasing
against the Undertaker.
Right.
I just want to say, I think it's absolutely admirable that John has made all these notes about what happened in the match when fucking hell, nobody gives a shit. It was so long before the Undertaker came in. We're here for the Undertaker, for God's sake.
Oh man, I like this. This is my favourite match that we're going to be discussing tonight. So, Triple H starts it out with a little bit of a curtsy.
Little side note on Triple H here. I thought he was brilliant in this match. Like, he looks so much different compared to everyone else. Like, really lean and muscular, whereas everyone else is just big lumps.
A lot of people,
wrestlers during this period are just big lumps.
Would say that Triple H probably wished he had a little bit more heft and lump to him, considering how this match goes.
Yeah, maybe. But he looked great.
I did like that they even referenced the Triple H name at one point, didn't they?
They
sort
do,
of,
yes.
So, and
Mr. Perfect
I also
on commentary.
Yes, it was Mr. Perfect. Right, I hadn't actually realised that. I also like the
awful
fact
as well, Mr. Perfect.
that he sort of lined up or attempted to do a pedigree, and they referenced it. They called it the pedigree as well. So
I mean, it's so great, isn't it? Like the fact that his move is still called the pedigree, and it's just it's so inconsequential to what he is now and where he started. Yeah. It's just cool.
I just think fast forward, 25 years or whatever, and there he is, sat in the corner of a ring in Saudi Arabia with a torn pec muscle, having possibly the worst match of all time, and with a load of other old people, including The Undertaker. Oh my God, imagine when we get to that on The Undertaking. It's going to be a joy.
It'd be nice, because neither of us have seen it, have we?
Yeah, I have.
We might... Yeah, by that point when we get round to it, it might be similar to how we felt about Giant Gonzalez. Like, it might have been long enough that we're kind of into it again. But the match starts off with Fatu and Triple H. Henry Godwinn eventually tags in and does a pretty sick gorilla press to Trips.
Yeah, it looks good, that.
Hoists him up.
Holds it for a long time as well.
Yeah, it's proper impressive feat of strength, this.
They were referring to him as the hog farmer throughout, weren't they?
They were.
Which I liked. And he did look good. I enjoyed him.
It seemed like it was one of the only other side stories going on in this match, is that obviously kind of Triple H and Godwinn were having their own little micro feud regarding chucking slop on rich people. Seems like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But then Savio Vega gets tagged in and basically gets the shit kicked out of him for about 15 minutes straight.
He takes a lot of shit, doesn't he, old Savio?
He's a small wrestler in comparison to everyone else, and everyone has a go. He eats a big old, either a belly-to-belly suplex or a side slam from Mabel.
Do you know what I find weird? Throughout this next Mabel match, the commentary team are really trying to put over how agile Mabel is for a guy his size. They keep mentioning how dynamic and agile he is, and how he's he moves so well for such a big guy. He moves like a big old rock.
He moves as you would expect him to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
you really don't see those kind of wrestlers anymore, do you? Just thinking, about the Rikishis and the Yokozunas and the
It's
Mabels.
almost like they all die at the age of 40 from diabetes and heart attacks.
Yeah. I wonder if you ever get any trying to attend, like tryouts, and they're just like, nope, we're not going down that route.
You've got a few, like Otis and Dave Mastiff and stuff.
But even I guess. But Otis is still like really strong. He's not like horribly obese, is he?
I just think
Dave Mastiff a bit more. Yeah, that's true.
The sort of the big, huge wrestler thing has kind of passed a little bit. Like it's just with what we know now, it's hard to kind of see it as anything but just a heart attack waiting to happen. Really.
Yeah,
they're probably still very popular on the sort of lower indie scene, I reckon, local wrestling. There's probably some big dudes there.
They did. They've just got rid of Nia Anti-Vax as well. And I'm willing to take a dig at her weight, considering her being a big anti-vax loser. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I mean, I'm not going to get involved with fat shaming someone.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm so sorry, anybody who took offence.
But anyway, Mabel... No. Mabel is kind of a bit gassed from this, and he's swaying against the ropes, and maybe it's the Mabel lean. All right, we're back on track.
Did you write that down somewhere, Sam? I thought in your notes.
Made it up.
It's okay to admit that you write down jokes.
I've lost my place now.
Got overexcited.
Isaac Yankem tags into the ring, and to be fair, Yankem again looking real good. I mean, obviously the dentist gimmick is a dud, but lands a sick drop kick on Savio Vega.
I don't remember him in this match at all, really, Yankem.
That's pretty much all he does.
The dentist gimmick only really works if you're an actual dentist, right? As we've seen in recent years.
So far, the dentist gimmick has a 50% success rate in wrestling, which is, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Yankem tags in, does a drop kick. Lawler comes in, pile drives Vega, then goes to do another pile driver.
Yeah.
And this is where the match gets weird, because Savio Vega, looking 30 years into the future, decides to New Japan style no-sell it, possibly.
I wasn't sure if he no-sold it or countered it. It wasn't very clear.
He lands smack on his head, bounces straight up, looks maybe a foot shorter than he started, and falls towards the corner and tags in the Undertaker, and the match kicks off proper.
But at this point, I'd say this match has been going on 10 minutes, right?
It's longer than it should have been for one person in a 4-person tag.
No one's been eliminated so far.
All 8 men are there, and Taker gets the hot tag from a now dead Savio Vega.
And he's into it straight away, isn't he, as you'd expect. So at least at this point, I was like, oh, okay, well, at least we're going to see some business. We're going to see the Undertaker clear the decks here. And I did love it how when he first got in, I can't remember who he was in with initially, but all the other
Jerry Lawler,
all the other members of the Royals were like leaning away, not wanting to tag in. Jerry Lawler was sort of reaching over, and they were all totally disinterested or like stepping down, like, we're not getting in with that guy.
Jerry the King Lawler in the clutches of the Undertaker, down to the canvas.
Not so great to be royalty now. He's going to be dethroned here. The Undertaker in the ring for the very first time.
And no one will tag Jerry Lawler. No one will tag Jerry the King Lawler.
Not even Mabel.
The Undertaker scoops him up. The tombstone is coming. The tombstone.
So yeah, Lawler, unable to tag out, gets picked up by Undertaker. He is tombstoned and he is eliminated. And so Isaac Yankem comes into the ring. And you're thinking, okay, cool. Kane and Undertaker ready to duke it out. Let's see a bit of early. Nope, none of that. Undertaker hoists him up. Tombstones him. Gone.
Oh, was it a tombstone? Oh, it was. Sorry,
yeah.
didn't he? He clotheslined him and then did the tombstone.
Does. Yeah, it's basically Undertaker just runs through him.
Yeah, because that's why I was just like, it's so cool the way that he did. I mean, with Jerry, he did like the two-handed lift him up in the air choke.
Oh,
thing,
he does the double choke. Yeah.
which looked fucking cool. Then he does the tombstone. Then he does the running clothesline on the next guy, and then he does the tombstone. It was just like, this is brilliant. It's like greatest hits.
Undertaker is just cleaning house here.
Yeah,
It's so good. The smartest man in the ring, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, sees the devastation wreak through his team and decides, fuck this. I'm not having anything to do with this. And he tries to leg it. And he gets to the outside of the ring where he is met by Henry Godwin and his bucket of slop.
yes.
And so decides, okay, back onto the apron I go. Where Undertaker grabs him round the neck, lifts him up in a choke slam, walks 3/4 of the way across the ring. It's insane, this.
Yeah.
Slams him down. It's not even a choke slam at this point. It could have been its own finisher. It's wild.
Yeah.
How
To lift him up from
massive
on the
this
other,
is.
he's on the other side of the ropes. He lifts him up, and then, as you say, like slams him down, but all on the other side of the ring. It looks amazing.
So much momentum. It's one of my favourite choke. It's definitely the best choke slam I've seen to date. But again,
So far,
it feels
yeah.
disingenuous calling it a choke slam because it's just so different from what we're used to with that. It's
like
so
a
much more
choke
horizontal
launch.
momentum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Choke launch.
Choke launch is a great name for it. So yeah, Undertaker legitimately kills Hunter Hearst Helmsley. And
Yeah.
we're never going to hear from him again in any wrestling capacity ever again.
No.
And Mabel, seeing this happen, has run out of energy and decides, okay, cool, I'm done with this. And decides to... Does he get in the ring? He does. He does attack The Undertaker. Very briefly. And Undertaker basically has none of it. And Mabel falls out of the ring.
Tries to sort of fall out of the like between the top and the middle rope. That goes wrong. He basically just falls to the canvas and then rolls underneath the bottom rope.
Yeah, it goes really wrong.
He
for
tried to
him,
do
poor
the
Mabel.
elegant. You know, we've all seen Kyle O'Reilly do that a million times, where he falls through
Yeah.
the ropes and it looks amazing. Mabel couldn't quite pull that off.
Mabel is no Kyle O'Reilly.
Not
And
yet.
Mabel, in so far, what is the second of 3 Mabel matches that we will be watching, is the fastest we'll ever see him move, is running away from the ring, back up the ramp to get out of dodge.
Even in this context, I feel like run is quite a generous term. Like, it was more like a
He gently jogs up
fast
the ramp.
plod. Yeah.
And Mabel gets counted out. And the Darkside have defeated the Royals, with Undertaker eliminating all 4 of them, and the Darkside not losing a single member of the team.
This was a weird match, man.
But there's more.
Just Survivor Series wise, like, it was just like the way it was like set up and the pacing of it was just weird. Like, it was great when the Taker came in, but it just felt a bit.
It's very strange. Whilst all of this is happening, Sir Mo has entered the ring and eats a chokeslam for his troubles.
Poor old Mo.
Just, the Darkside needed something, so they all take down Mo. And the match is over.
Well, call it the face of victory, because the Undertaker and the Darkside have clean house here at the Survivor Series. This match ending 4 against 0. Mabel took off, obviously counted out. But there will be a day of reckoning for King Mabel, that's for certain. There will be that day of reckoning when he meets his maker, when he meets the Undertaker, 1-on-1.
And so we go to the scoring, managed by John.
Is and so you're our hero?
Yeah, I can't help myself. I really can't help myself.
I like it. I like it because you don't tend to say that on any other podcast. But and
I
so
know.
has become our hero. Like John's our hero.
I know. I hear myself saying it, and there's a little voice in my head saying, "No, Sam, shut up! Don't say that." But I can't help
thinking,
it.
We actually had a little break there, listener, where we were looking for the document. I'm just going to tell people it's all edited really nicely. We couldn't find the the Google Drive spreadsheet with all the scores. There was a bit of filler. We're like, okay, now Sam, introduce the scores. And so you could have just said, "It's score time, motherfuckers." I think we should say that from now on.
I sorted out the spreadsheet. Shall we do some scores? So for Darkside as
can you say it's score time, motherfuckers, please? I think that should be how you do it.
That seems a bit aggressive for us.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, so Adam, for the match.
2.5 for the match. I agree. I loved it when Taker got in, but the rest of it was, won't remember
and
much.
For Taker himself.
I'm going to give 3.5, which may be my highest score for him so far, but he came in, he did all his great stuff, he won the whole match, and he was genuinely very good.
Cool. Sam?
So I'm going to give 3 for the match. I did enjoy this. I thought it was a good match. Just a lot of new wrestlers on display here that we're going to be seeing a lot of in the future, you know?
Oh, God.
And Henry Godwin. Taker, I'm going to give 3.5 as well. I thought he was very impressive in this.
What about you, John? Can you give your own score and enter numbers into a spreadsheet? Let's find out.
I'm going to give the match a 2.
Ooh.
And I'm going to give Taker a 3.
Ooh.
So that gives the match an average score of 2.5 and Taker a score of 3.3 recurring.
Is that one of the highest Taker matches? Taker performances we've had?
It is indeed. He put in a 3.875 at one point, but we didn't write down which match that was, so
Fantastic.
I need to go back and actually update that.
Yoko, probably. We love you, but Yoko.
Might have been Gonzalez for all we know. I reckon it was the one where he disappears off into heaven. That was a great match, that. And with that, we move on to my favourite part of the podcast.
Shit.
It's time for an Undertaker fact.
You want to hear an interesting Undertaker fact?
All right, it's time for an Undertaker fact. And I didn't have much time to research, so I've gone for one of my backup ones to use in case I ever didn't have the time. The Undertaker holds the record for the most Hell in a Cell matches, with 13 in total.
Oh, that's a thematically great number for him to have had.
How many of those do you think he won, Sam?
13.
No, John?
8.
Correct.
A collusion. You guys are across it.
Incredible.
I was thinking with the next match as well. I wonder if anyone else has had a casket match that hasn't involved The Undertaker.
That's true. Let's go back to the normal podcast world as we escape the world of The Undertaker fact.
You want to hear an interesting Undertaker fact?
Wow, feels so different to be back here. Let's find out about this casket match. I'm excited.
Match 23 versus Mabel at In Your House 1995 Seasons Beatings, a casket match at the Hershey Park Arena, Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Welcome everyone to this very special holiday WWF Spectacular Live from the Hershey Park Arena.
Season Beatings is a great name for
Is it?
Many things, actually, including a wrestling event.
I was going to say, for a porno, yeah.
I mean, did you watch the start? Because obviously, listeners will have heard the little intro there from the pay-per-view. Did you watch the start? Because the graphics, the animation at the start of this was the worst thing I've ever seen. It's like a little animation of a door opening with snowballs getting thrown at the door, and the worst sound effects you've ever heard. I encourage people to go and check it out to see how terrible it was. When you see what they're doing now with augmented reality and all these other effects that they've got, it's just so dated. It's really funny.
This was 26 years ago.
Yeah, I suppose.
The In Your House series of pay-per-views were kind of budget pay-per-views to kind of help pad out.
I didn't realise how often they were. Like, they had 5 in a year.
Yeah, it was essentially... You know how like we have a pay-per-view every month now? And like before that, you had the big four. This was kind of like the in-between step of that. Was you had the big four, and then you had the in-your-house pay-per-views. And ultimately, the biggest purpose they served was making the Undertaking so much more complicated because of the amount of dark matches that took place on them.
Ah, interesting.
Thank you, Vince McMahon. Match 23. Following Survivor Series and through some relatively loose story machinations, The Undertaker would retrieve the urn that was melted down into some rad chains by Karma. But this wouldn't last long, as on the November 27th episode of Raw, 1995, it would close out with Mabel once again getting involved in Undertaker's match post-match, mugging Paul Bearer and retrieving the urn. Well, the chains.
Okay, because I thought maybe they remelted the chains down back into an urn and then Mabel stole it and then melted it back into chains.
So this is fascinating, actually, because this episode of Raw ends with basically Undertaker versus, it's going to be Karma, the Supreme Fighting Machine. Like, I wanted to jump off a building when I was watching this episode of Raw and I heard Ted DiBiase's goddamn music again because of the amount of times we've heard it. And Karma comes out and I'm just like, no, I'm done with this. And he's got the urn chained, the remnants of the urn, as it's called.
Remnants of the urn. I love that. That should have been that sounds like a fragrance.
It does. They're very consistent with calling it that as well.
It's also inspired me. When I win the end of year quiz, I think I might melt down the lunchbox and turn it into a cool chain, like a necklace to wear every time we record.
Tricky with plastic, though, that.
It's metal, isn't it? Or tin?
I don't know. You guys haven't seen it in about 4 or 5 years.
Oh, you're the one who's got it, you fucking shit. Where is it? It should be in the background. I can see all your other wrestling memorabilia. Where's the lunchbox? Why is it not out? You're not proud of it.
Sold it.
You're not
sold it for lunch money.
You're like Naito. Like, it's probably just on the floor. You don't give a shit.
Thank you, Adam. So Karma is set to wrestle The Undertaker at the end of Raw, and Ted DiBiase comes out and says basically Karma is injured. I've lined up a replacement. It's Mo. And Mo comes out to wrestle The Undertaker, and everyone's a little bit like, oh, cool, I guess. Great. And Undertaker wins. It's a fairly straightforward win. But during this match, at the end of the episode, Mabel lumbers his way to the ring and mugs Paul Bearer of the urn chain, the remnants of the urn. Essentially, Undertaker had it back for about 12 seconds before Mabel nicks it.
In those 12 seconds, did Undertaker wear the chain?
He had definitely held it aloft. Like, you know, Power of Grayskull, He-Man sword style. It was good. But this would go on so that on the following episode of Raw, I believe, Mabel would be on the Brother Love show. That was back.
Wow.
And he would make some very interesting claims.
A lot of those stupid fans think that I'm scared of The Undertaker because I ran at the Survivor Series.
Mabel's running! Mabel's running! Mabel's out of here!
No matter what you say, no matter what you do, I have no fear for you.
Mabel with The Undertaker! Oh!
I was the first one to ever pin his shoulders to the mat.
Hammer coming in from behind a boot! 1, 2, and you got it! You got it!
I was the first one to put him out of action.
And another leg drop by Mabel!
And I'm gonna be the first one to put him in that casket to rest in peace for good.
Just for a point of reference, Mabel was not the first man to pin The Undertaker's shoulders to the mat. 1, 2, 3. He certainly wasn't the first man to put him out of action, and he wasn't the first man to stuff him into his own casket. So
how does he get away with that? Was this a very early example of fake news, and viewers just accepting it?
I think WWF have been doing this for a long time.
That's where Trump got it from, I think.
Yeah, that's probably true, actually.
And so, no, I keep doing it now.
I feel bad that
it.
I've drawn your attention to it. I've
even
sorry.
Written, anyway, Brother Love and Sir Mo would steal The Undertaker's casket and graffiti it. And if none of this sounds like a story that tracks, that's completely correct. It doesn't track at all. This is essentially just leading up to Mabel versus The Undertaker at In Your House 95. The main event is a casket match. And let's go on to the match itself.
I love how it's so weird that the way that we make The Undertaking, because Sam sends us the matches that we've got to watch, and then we go onto the network, find the pay-per-view, skip to the match that we need to watch and watch it. But you don't know any of the context. And then you get the information afterwards when we're recording the pod, like, oh, okay, now that weird thing that happened makes sense.
Because Mabel and Mo come out with the casket, and I was like, why are they providing the casket for a casket match? Sure, you get the man that makes caskets for a living to bring his casket.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, what you've said there is exactly the way I prepared my part of The Undertaking. Is I watch the matches first and then kind of go backwards and do the research from there. And I write down like lists of questions that I have, and one of them is like, why did Mabel have the casket? What's going on here? How did Sir Mo get the remnants of the urn? All of that.
Maybe next time we need to do this live so that you do this research, and then when it gets to the match, we press play and we watch the match live, and the listeners get to hear us reacting to the match without being able to see it. I think that would be amazing audio for them.
That would be great. They'd sit there watching me, just looking confused, trying to string together a series of convoluted storylines, most of which make no sense. But Mabel makes his entrance, hair looking like a pineapple. He is being carried on his palanquin.
Jason Lee. I thought his hair actually looked fantastic. It wasn't quite pineapple.
Oh, really?
It was more maybe a slice of dried pineapple.
It was quite fluffy. It's like a weird fluffy mohawk at different angles.
It looked cool. And I actually think he rocks the crown really well. He looks a bit like
That's a good
Notorious
look.
B.I.G., let's face it.
And eagle-eyed viewers and John would notice that one of the men carrying Mabel to the ring and breaking his back in the process was indeed an 18-year-old Jeff Hardy.
Oh, yes. I couldn't believe when I spotted it. I was like, oh my God, is that Jeff? He was puffing as well. He did not look happy.
That is a great spot, because I was looking forward to telling you guys about that. Funnily enough, the next week on Raw would see a really good match that I ended up watching, which was a very young Matt Hardy versus the Ringmaster.
Whoa.
Yeah, which is just crazy to think about.
Amazing.
That means Stone Cold's coming soon, though, guys.
He is. So, Mabel and Mo are providing the casket. Mo is wearing the remnants of the urn, and the Taker makes his entrance, phantom mask wearing version again.
Yeah. Did I tell you about the present I got for my wife?
And Mabel dominates this match. He's pretty across it for almost the whole match.
Guys, I'm really sorry to do this, because you've got this all laid out and we've got a plan of how we're going to approach this. But before the match began, we had a cutaway to the locker room where, I can't remember what his name was, decided to take us through
fucking Hendrix.
some amazing WWF arcade games.
Oh, how
the Midway
expensive
one.
were those games?
And I love the way that
Bloody
he
hell.
described the systems. Listen to this.
Listen, allow me to help you with a little bit of Christmas shopping. Right now, let me show you the Wrestlemania Arcade game. Here is the Super NES version, only $64.99. The Genesis Sega version, $54.99. And the Sony PlayStation, $54.99. But now, you know this is so hard to get in stores. I went to 10 of them. They're all out, okay? Let me show you what we're going to do. We're going to throw in absolutely free a $15 value, the video that tells you the strategies and the secret codes, how you can beat the game, something that the stores won't do for you. And you know how you can get this. Call 1-800-TITAN-91. I guess the next thing to do is let's get ready for a casket match.
What does he call it? A Super NES. Did anybody ever call it that? It was a Super Nintendo or a SNES.
I don't think that's that crazy.
They definitely do call it a Super NES in America and some places.
Then he was like, oh, and the Genesis Sega. I think. I mean, I may have misremembered this, and the listeners have literally just heard what was said.
Did any of you guys ever play that game? Because I did.
I think I
played a lot
No,
of
it
it when I
looked
was
cool.
younger.
I don't know.
It was made by Midway, who are the same people who made Mortal Kombat. And so it kind of had photographic style sprites for all the characters, and it was sort of a mix of like a 2D fighter in like a Mortal Kombat style, but with a lot more wrestling going on, so you could get in and out of the ring.
Sounds right up your street.
game I played a lot of when I was younger. I played it on the Mega Drive.
No one,
Not having any of this Super Genesis, Sega stuff. Mega Drive.
But it was $64 for a game, which 6 years ago is crazy money.
I'm not going to lie. I got it from Blackbush Market for dirt cheap.
Interesting.
But
anyway, the match.
Yeah, the match. Mabel dominates early and lands a handful of basically side slams and splashes. And the match continues in this fashion until Mabel decides to ascend to the second rope.
Oh, yeah.
Which...
Is this where Taker had
done...
done...
For a 568-pound man.
Taker had just done 2 sit-ups already, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And then, this happens. Mabel gets up there, goes for his splash, and it was the most perfectly timed sit-up from Taker. He literally... It's almost as if Mabel's gut, grazes the top of his head as he sits up. It was just perfectly timed. Looked really, really good.
And Mabel... would essentially continue to dominate after this. Even though Undertaker was essentially weathering the storm, doing a lot of sitting up, Mabel would just basically keep side-slamming him and throwing him out of the ring. And Sir Mo would get involved and land a couple of moves on him on the outside of the ring. And then Mo just picks up Undertaker, walks over to the coffin, and just plonks him in.
Yep.
I did actually think, oh, okay, is this it?
Yeah, I was... in my opinion, the match is over. Though, most importantly, and crucial to the match itself, is that the lid is not shut.
Yeah.
I wonder, I was trying to work the logic out of this in my head. Is that because Mabel has to close the lid? Otherwise it'd be a DQ?
I believe that is what was an intention, although it seems to me it's quite fast and loose with the casket match rules.
Well, I mean, would you bury somebody without shutting the lid? Is it over? Is somebody definitely dead and buried if you haven't shut the lid of the coffin?
Adam is asking questions about Schrodinger's Undertaker here that I just can't deal with at this point.
I'd suggest somebody is not in a coffin properly until the lid is closed.
No, yeah, I agree with that. But then why didn't Mo shut it?
Because he's just thick as shit. He dresses as referees.
So Mo then retrieves the crown and gives it to Mabel. More on Viscera later. And Mabel dons his crown, throws some shapes on the way over to the casket to go close it.
Yes. Cocky.
And as he grabs the casket lid, goes to close it, and the Undertaker, hand out of the coffin.
Unfortunate
holds it open.
Bad camera angle, because you sort of see Taker shift across and he's looking and he's like, right, is it time for me to reach up yet?
Yeah.
If the camera had been a bit lower, you would have just seen the hand come up and it would have looked cool. But they didn't manage it. No in casket camera though this time. They couldn't afford it.
There is.
Is there?
But they only use one shot of it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
It's literally a cameo appearance of the casket cam.
Wow.
And it happens as Undertaker finds his way out of the coffin. It starts his assault on Mabel again, lands an awful looking choke slam closer to a rock bottom.
Mabel gets off the ground though. Slam. I'm still impressed when he jumps and gets off the ground by about 3 inches, but he still gets off the ground.
Doesn't keep Mabel down for long, so Taker kicks Mabel in the back of the head.
That was so nasty, that bit, because it was quite a high kick from Taker. It looked really impressive, but it was straight to the back of Mabel's head.
Now, 100%, if someone decided to sit on me and break my orbital bone, I would be looking at kicking them in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And so Taker plonks Mabel into the casket. Mo, not happy with this turn of events, gets involved. That's a mistake. Taker puts Mo in the casket, and just as he's about to close it, you can hear Paul Bearer's shrieking voice saying, "The urn, the urn."
Yeah, I wondered what was going on. I was like, what is this weird ending? Why isn't he closing it? Is he fucked up too? And then it makes sense. He goes in.
Undertaker gets into the coffin. And at this point in time, you have the 568-pound Mabel, the probably close to 400-pound Mo, and the 330-pound Undertaker all in the casket at the same time.
Yeah.
For a brief second. So it's a good thing they didn't reuse that one from the Karma match.
Yeah.
True.
And the Undertaker retrieves the remnants of the urn, and he closes the coffin. He closes the lid on Mabel's career. Well, Mabel's career. And the match is over.
The Undertaker with the remnants of the urn in his hand and the lid.
Let's go to the motherfucking scores.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, let's go. Sam, match.
It's a 1.5. It's a rubbish coffin match.
Wow. And Taker?
Yeah, 1.5.
Wow. Adam, match.
1.5 for match, 2 for Taker.
I will go 1 for the match and 1.5 for Taker.
Yeah. I wouldn't seek this one out, listener.
No, gives the match an average score of 1.3 recurring and Taker a score of 1.66666. A few more sixes than a 7 at the end.
Beautiful. And so normally this is where we'd leave it with The Undertaking. We've done 2 matches, we've talked in extensive detail, but let's be honest, we've had 2 matches with Mabel. It's not good showing. Match 20.
Need a palate cleanser. We feel quite heavy, like it's a lot to digest.
Match 24. 24 matches.
Wow.
Versus the excellence of execution and the World Heavyweight Champion Bret Hart at Royal Rumble 96 at the Selland Arena, Fresno, California.
In the World Wrestling Federation, the reigning champion is defined by Hart. Bret the Hitman Hart, a living legend who has conquered adversity. A man who continues to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. But tonight, the Hitman must face the challenge of a man who is no mere mortal. A force whose powers are mythical. A phenom whose heart at times can be cold.
Finally reunited with the urn.
Hooray!
He earned it back.
They went and bought a new urn. A new look urn.
They did.
Modern.
They melted it back. They reforged it.
Sure.
Or maybe they bought a new one. And with the Creatures of the Night, who we hadn't heard of for a long time, supporting Undertaker's push, it was time for him to return to the title picture, and with that, a match against Bret Hart.
Oh, we forgot to mention that at the end of the last match against Mabel, there's that bit where Taker's in the ring doing the belt sign around his waist really awkwardly.
Really good point. Yeah, he obviously was foreshadowing, long-term storytelling in WWE.
Can I just say, like, how unbelievably exciting is it to have a match where you're like, yes, here we go. We're about to start. This is business now. We've sat through a lot of dross, a lot of huge men, a lot of casket matches, a lot of Ted DiBiase's mates. Finally, to see, when you sent it in the WhatsApp, The Undertaker versus Bret Hart. I was excited for this.
Was incredibly excited for this. Bret Hart, one of the best wrestlers of all time, taking on The Undertaker at a huge pay-per-view. It's the stuff of legends, and we've got a clip here that I'm just gonna sneak in.
Oh, countless numbers of times, my Undertaker's Creatures of the Night have asked Paul Bearer, when will the Undertaker get a chance at the WWF Championship? Well, my friends, it's time! Bret Hart, you were a grand and glorious champion. But now, it's out of my hands. The Creatures of the Night have spoken, and I do intend to deliver.
And so Undertaker, ready for this match, he's making his entrance to the Royal Rumble, complete with Phantom Mask. And who does he run into Big Daddy Cool.
Yeah, so this was confusing, but I'm guessing it was because this main event came after the Royal Rumble match. So was Diesel...
That's right.
Like one of the final two?
Diesel was in the final two,
Okay.
and Shawn Michaels eliminated him. So
he's still leaving.
The Royal Rumble...
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What was weird was that Diesel got eliminated from the Royal Rumble. He was obviously, at this point in time, tag team partners / friends with Shawn Michaels. Michaels eliminates him. Diesel starts to leave, then comes back to the ring. It looks like he's about to betray Shawn Michaels, but instead he gives him a big high five, and they're all buddy-buddy. And the camera cuts away, and it goes to an advert or something, and it comes back, and now Diesel is still very slowly, methodically leaving the ring.
Right.
I forget how big and sexy Diesel is. Like, he's a good-looking guy. Like, big, broad back, great face. So tall. Like, he's a foot taller than Taker.
He's huge. And of course, what is most important is we forget that he also has Kevin Nash's knees, which is why he was taking so long to get out of the ring.
I'm not surprised with all that lumber on top.
Huh. And so Diesel and Undertaker cross paths as Undertaker is making his entrance, and the two of them get into a little bit of a tussle.
It was a bit rubbish. And what...
It was a little bit rubbish.
What made it even more rubbish was the fact that they then did the replay of it, which was...
Yeah,
it was literally...
Like a second
and they showed... And it was like a 20-second
Exactly
replay of the exact thing that had happened. It wasn't from a different angle. It wasn't sped up. There were no close-ups.
Incredibly poor.
It was like, oh, that was boring. Let's run it again.
What I'm really worried about is that this was like foreshadowing, like, oh my God, is there a Diesel feud we're going to have to watch through? Oh, there is.
Capped off by Diesel shouting at Undertaker, "I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the dark."
Yeah, big man talk.
He does explain that later on. There's like, he does a promo at the end of the pay-per-view and he kind of
does.
explains what that's all about, but it doesn't make any sense in here.
Then Bret Hart makes an entrance, and Bret Hart's cool as heck. The crowd love him.
Yeah.
It's just a
Love that music,
fantastic
right?
face.
I hate it when Natalia uses it. But
Well, that's the problem
yeah.
that I've got now, is that music comes in and I just think of Natalia, because let's face it,
I know.
the period that we've done this podcast for in the last 3-4 years, I've probably seen more Natalia matches than Bret Hart matches, which is
Shouldn't be saying that too loudly.
horrendous
But yeah.
to think of. Anyway,
And so the match begins.
the sharpshooter versus the tombstone pile driver. That's how they
And
frame
will we
it
see
at the start.
either of these? Taker starts by just absolutely no-selling Bret's punches. And this match, from my opinion, is a really, really strange one, because it's like The Undertaker of old.
Yeah, he's really slow and ploddy, isn't he? Especially in the first half.
So slow. The whole thing just drags. Do we know
Unfortunately,
how long this match is? Do we have stats on how long every match we've done is? Because we should do that.
I don't have stats. I did look up how long this match was.
This must
and
be
it
the
was
longest.
28 minutes long.
28 minutes.
It's a very long
it
match.
felt
and
it.
Unfortunately, this is a case of two great wrestlers meeting and just having an absolute dud of a match.
Yeah, I almost feel like maybe because Bret is such a over babyface that Taker had to go more like old school Taker, like the slow, ploddy, like Frankenstein's monster sort of.
It really, the two styles did not merge at all, and the booking just kind of put itself in a way where, because they were both faces, it was unclear who was taking that heel role. Sometimes it was Bret, sometimes it was Undertaker.
Yeah, because definitely at the end of this match, Bret does some very heely things.
But then you've also got Taker using a cable and a chair, and as bearer distracts the referee. I know we're sort of going all over the place, but I kind of don't think it's worth going move by move on this match, because it was so
It's
dull.
honestly not.
It was so dull.
It's one of the worst matches of The Undertaker's career that I've watched to date. And I don't mean that in a... Well,
we just watched a Mabel match. Come on.
Yeah.
The problem with this match is that the bar is set so much higher because it's Bret Hart. There's not the excuse of Undertaker carrying Mabel or Yokozuna or Karma. Didn't really carry Karma, or Giant Gonzalez. It's Bret Hart.
Yeah.
And the match itself, the theme around it is essentially Bret Hart is focusing on The Undertaker's legs. Early on in the match, Undertaker gets Irish whipped into the stairs and smashes his knees up, and it did look cool.
It did look nasty. Yeah, it did, yeah.
But beyond that, the entire match was essentially Bret Hart working Undertaker's legs.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting ready for the sharpshooter.
And a series of rest holds from the Undertaker, chokes, and just generally
weirdly
claws.
Quite a lot early on as well. Like, after they hadn't done anything really.
Ponderous.
But this all had you thinking, all right, this is going to spring into action in a minute. It's going to kick off. Bret's going to get his chance or whatever. And there was one moment where I think Taker was sort of beating down and it was all very slow. And then Bret does spring. But the crowd just don't really react. And when you're watching the crowd throughout this, I don't know if that Rumble match was absolutely incredible.
I was going to say,
they're just flat as fuck. They're just not interested.
You just can't put a main event after a Royal Rumble.
No, like the crowd's done at that point.
Doesn't work. The Royal Rumble is your main event.
Yeah.
And so
it's a weird position.
Or if you do, you need a match like a Brock Lesnar style match where it's like 3 minutes of fucking move, and it gets them pumped up and then it's done. Not 28 minutes of slow wrestling.
It's a very ponderous and unfortunately poor match with two good wrestlers who just... They don't get the crowd on board. Thematically, they're not quite where they need to be. There's unclear who is the face, who is the heel. Yeah. They both kind of come across just looking a little bit heelish.
And there's a lot of the crowd are mixed. Some people are booing, some people are cheering for both wrestlers. And it was interesting that Vince was referencing that, saying, "Oh, they don't know who to cheer. Oh, there's boos and cheers." And I think internally he's probably like, "Oh, fuck. You never want that mixed reaction. You need it to go one way or the other."
Yeah, especially when they started booing Bret, that feels so alien to me. Because he takes off the turnbuckle padding, and there was definitely a lot of boos there. That felt weird.
Yeah, but then
I do love seeing the turnbuckle padding going.
Being a heel.
But Bret manages to smash Taker into the exposed turnbuckle twice.
Yeah.
And Taker responds with a tombstone. Literally completely out of nowhere, just lands it. And as the ref is about to count to 3, who turns up? It's the Undertaker classic.
Yeah, somebody runs
interrupting the end of his match, foreshadowing the next Undertaking. Diesel turns up, Big Daddy Cool, and pulls Undertaker out of the ring and assaults him, essentially giving the Undertaker the win, but a win by disqualification is not a title changing hands. And as a little bit of foreshadowing of the Attitude Era, Big Daddy Cool flips Undertaker off.
Oh no, here it comes! It's over, McManafee! Oh, forget it!
The Hitman has been punched down just like that!
Where did he pull that out of?
The official sliding down for the count. 1.
Oh,
Wait a minute.
Diesel pulled the referee out.
Wait a minute. Diesel just pulled the official out of the ring.
I wasn't as down on this match as you guys. I quite enjoyed it. It was too long and it was a bit ploddy in places, but I quite liked a lot of the mat work that Bret was doing.
It wasn't terrible, it just disappointed in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the fact that it was Undertaker versus Bret Hart, I'm so excited and I was waiting for it to come alive, and then it didn't. And then at one point I was just like, I've written on my notes long as fuck, because it just felt like such a long time. I watched it this afternoon. I was like, I'll just finish this match off and then I'll get back and do some work. And I was like, oh my God, when is this going to end?
So I've watched this match 3 times in the last 2 days because I've tried
an hour and a half of your life gone.
Yeah,
I know. I've tried to kind of take everything in that happens, but the honest truth is the match is maybe 80% of the Undertaker choking Bret Hart and 20% of Bret Hart just attacking the Undertaker's leg.
Yeah, and the end is shit. Like to end like that,
it's a weird smodgy engine.
It's the kind of thing that WWE, like in the last few years, would do, or a couple of years ago when they were so out of touch, and then the fans are just left booing. These fans weren't booing the result of the match because they were just exhausted and they just wanted to go home. They're like, oh, cool. They just got up and got their coats and like, we can finally leave.
Yeah.
But it was such a bad end because you're like, oh, wow, okay, Taker's going to win the belt, which would have been a huge moment and it would have been massive for the Undertaking. But no, you get the screwy finish and you know it's going to lead to Diesel coming in and probably having some matches. And it's just disappointing. Should we score it?
Yeah. Okay, Sam, what do you give this match?
I'm going to give this match a solid 1.
Oh dear.
I'm very down on this match. And I'm going to give Taker 0.5.
0.5.
I think this match just left a lot to be desired, and I was disappointed.
Okay.
Adam.
2 for both.
So I'm going to give the match 2 as well. And I'll give Taker 1.5.
Okay.
So that gives the match an average score of 1.6 recurring and Taker an average score of 1.3 recurring.
So is the takeaway
It's a poor showing.
that if the listeners haven't watched any of these and they'd like to go and check out maybe one match, it's going to be the Survivor Series match, which 90% of it
definitely.
isn't Taker. So you can just fast forward to the end, check out some vintage Taker there.
Yeah, the end of that match is cool. It's really
Yeah.
The Survivor Series match is worth checking out because of all of the talent on display there.
That's true.
It's not so much kind of the people who are wrestling as much as what they turn into. You know, Isaac Yankem, Hunter Hurst Helmsley, Henry Godwin, just huge wrestlers, huge stars.
I think after we finish The Undertaking in 50 years' time, we should do the Godwins. Just for every one of their matches.
We're also going to introduce a new segment to The Undertaking called The Taker Way, which Adam's going to just sum up the whole episode with. So thank you for volunteering that, Adam.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that now if you like.
And on that note, we have reached the end of another Undertaking. Urns have been reforged, kings stuffed into caskets, a new foe to feud with Diesel, and beyond that, another feud simply dripping in gold.
Ooh, no way.
Yes!
Oh, Sam, you must be delighted.
But that is a story for another Undertaking.
Woo! 3 more matches in the bag. Fantastic. I won't do a takeaway now. You basically just summed it all up. Just go and watch that Royal Rumble. No, the Royals versus the Darkside at Survivor Series 95. Okay, next podcast. I should say, as is tradition, thanks, Sam, for all the research. You nailed it once more.
Thanks, guys. We've really become a well-oiled machine.
We have. John wrote out all the notes of the timeline of the match. I've grabbed all the clips.
Yeah, I was so annoyed when I did all the notes for the last match. We just skipped all over them because that match is too long and boring. Yeah, it was really long. I took all those bloody notes.
Sorry, John. I just saw the time that we were approaching and I thought it's good for, it's for us. The longer we go, the more we have to sit and edit immediately after the pod. So I did it for you, John, really.
Thanks, Adam.
If anybody wants a copy of John's notes that he so carefully put out, then you can get in touch. John will tell you about that in a minute. But the next podcast, you may have tuned in thinking, hold on, weren't they supposed to be doing their Full Gear review next? Well, we just got the dates wrong. John and I are convinced Full Gear was the weekend that's just gone, but it isn't. It's this weekend instead. So it looks like we may very well be doing 3 pods in 3 weeks. Undertaking today, Full Gear review next week, and then Survivor Series the week after. So lots of us content. Hopefully Bret will be around for one of those pay-per-view reviews, who knows? But he very kindly did the art for this episode, which is fucking great, and you can see the mask.
It's some of his best work.
In all its glory. I think it's literally just like a photo he found on a pink background. I think he's done better. The illustrations he used to do back in the day were fucking incredible. Do you remember the Tyler Bate Volta one? That Volta shared?
That was very good.
That was very cool, that one.
Go on our Instagram, listener, if you haven't, and scroll back through and look at all the wonderful art that Bret has done for this podcast in the past. So people need to know how to get in touch if they want your notes, and they also need to know what the Instagram is. Can you help them with that, John?
So if they want to get in touch, they can email us at hardestpartofthering@gmail.com, or they can get us on social media at hardestpartpod.
All right. Well, thank you very much to everybody who's listened. Thank you once again to Sam for all your hard work, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John,
Bye.
for your notes. They were so excellent. I'm going to read them again before bed.
Guys.
And see you next week.
Some of my best pros.
And I also look forward to seeing you all next week when we get to probably talk about another fucking amazing AEW pay-per-view. For now, though, that was the hardest part of the ring.